am tall, I am dark, I am beautiful, that's what's up. People, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I'm Keji, I'm a Chol, I'm Nyabich, I'm Nyanwer. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese. It's not about my hair, it's not about my height, it's not about my color. Oh, yeah. Oh, I am tall, I am dark, I am beautiful, that's what's up. People, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I'm Keji, I'm a Chol, I'm Nyabich, I'm Nyanwer. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese. It's not about my hair, it's not about my height, it's not about my color, it's not about it all. It's not about my tribe, it's not about my cows, it's not about it all. Because I've got lines, I've got dots, I've got marks on my face. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese. I'm white up and down, chocolate, all the states. People, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese. I am dark, I am beautiful, that's what's up. People, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese. I'm Keji, I'm a Chol, I'm Nyabich, I'm Nyanwer. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese. It's not about my tribe, it's not about my height, it's not about my color, it's not about it all. It's not about my height, it's not about my cows, it's not about it all. I'm a Southern Sudanese. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I am tall, I am dark, I am beautiful, that's what's up. People, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I'm Keji, I'm a Chol, I'm Nyabich, I'm Nyanwer. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I've got lines, I've got dots, I've got marks on my face. People, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I'm white up and down, chocolate, all the states. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I'm Keji, I'm a Chol, I'm Nyabich, I'm Nyanwer. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I've got lines, I've got dots, I've got marks on my face. People, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese, I'm Keji, I'm a Chol, I'm Nyabich, I'm Nyanwer. Darling, please, don't you see? I'm a Southern Sudanese.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us today for today's discussion by the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum. Our topic today, as the song clearly states, can South Sudanese build a national identity? The us versus the them mentality. My name is Dora Poniloro. I was born in South Sudan and I've lived most of my adult life in Norway. And the question of national identity lies very close to my heart. I'm glad to be moderating today's discussion on this sensitive but yet very important topic to discuss. Who is a South Sudanese? And what makes us South Sudanese? What makes us proud as South Sudanese? And how can we build a national identity that we all can be proud of. With me is a diverse panel of fellow South Sudanese living in South Sudan and in the diaspora. Together, we will share our perspectives and insights into this topic. And please leave your comments and questions in the chat, and we hopefully can be able to dwell on them. So I'll go on and present you the panelists. I'll not use so much time on reading their biographies because we want to talk today as South Sudanese. That's the identity we are carrying today. First person out is Barbara Akita Kibos Roba. She's a public health manager. She works in under the public health sector, and she's an information and systems specialist. Welcome, Barbara. The next person out is Dominic Akwai. Dominic is a geologist and an engineer. We have with us also Sarah Akwat. She has not joined yet. She will join us shortly. She's a youth advocate and an executive director. The next person out is our sister, Michelina Peter, who is a gender and child protection specialist. You're welcome, Michelina. Next one out is Sister Jocelyn Itorong. Jocelyn is a lawyer and a humanitarian worker. So she'll also be with us today to share her perspectives on this topic. We also have John Janico. He's joining us. His internet connection seems to be having some problems. He's a country director development, and he is also a specialist in public policy. So he will join us shortly. Welcome all, and we'll dwell into our topic for today's discussion. We know that as South Sudanese, we are so diverse, diverse in our cultures, our languages, and the tribes that are so rich and makes us so unique as a nation. But yet, we also have so much dispute in who is a South Sudanese and who is considered or seen as a South Sudanese. And because of that, there's also been some contradictions and conflicts because of how we perceive ourselves and also how others perceive us as South Sudanese. So today, we thought it would be good for us to talk about it and just shed some light and have that unity as South Sudanese and know what and who is a South Sudanese. So I'll start with you, Barbara, and I think it's all the questions will be the same for you, but I just want us to start with this first question: that what makes us proud as South Sudanese? So, Barbara, what makes you proud as a South Sudanese?
Thank you, Dora. I would say, me personally, I'm a very proud South Sudanese. And the pride comes from seeing who we are as South Sudanese. We have a diverse culture, very different tribes with their own languages. This is rich. So, like for me, I know if I go out there presenting South Sudanese, I know my language. I know the Nuer, some of the Nuer. I know Shiluk. I know Dinka. So it's something rich. Why can't we be proud of that? And that's my pride. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Michelina?
Thank you, Dora, for availing the platform for us to discuss this issue of South Sudan and who we are. To be honest, I just wanted to say I'm a super proud South Sudanese woman, even though I spend most of my adulthood life outside, but I just still keep going to South Sudan because that's who I am. I am so proud of the culture we have, the different traditional attires, the food, the environment, the natural resources, the people, the languages we speak, the way we bring up our families. Whatever it is, it's what makes me so proud to be South Sudanese. And the best of all of it is no one will ever take away this identity that I had. You know, I was born there, I was raised there to some uh, time before I left the country, and I feel I belong there, and that's where I am. I will always be South Sudanese. I will always be a proud South Sudanese woman, because when I talk outside and when I present, people always ask me, "Where are you?" I'll say, "I'm from that beautiful nation called South Sudan." And that's what makes me a proud South Sudanese. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, Dominic, do you want to add what makes you proud as a South Sudanese?
Hello, I hope I am audible. Are you listening to me? Or I'm talking to myself?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I was having some internet problems, so I was not really sure if it's still okay. But let me, from the onset, say that I'm honored to be again back in your forum to talk about yet another very important, but yet a controversial topic that we, as South Sudanese, uh, failed to answer in 2011. That is also anchored in our failures as Sudanese when we got our independence, because the quest has always been the quest of what is an identity of that nation. What will define us? What will make us a nation? And in this identity, that was defined even before the country could have its independence, back then in South Sudan and within the contemporary South Sudan. So it is a very controversial topic, but it's good. And then it comes with pride and proudness. And so, as a South Sudanese, our history is really deep. And that's what makes me so very proud that we are resilient people. But in this resilience of ours, we are very honest people. And not only that, South Sudanese are known for being humble, very welcoming. Even outside here, we walk with our heads up above the skies with the conviction that we are not of a lesser God. And to me, that is very important. That was make me proud. And when you looked at our struggle, and when you look at our current political dispensation in our country, it gives me a pride amidst all these things. But there is not a hope that our people keep on with them, as a people. And they will not even curse. Amidst everything, they are still a God loving people. They still go to the church and then they pray. And sometimes you wonder why somebody like Saturino Okure can leave his priesthood to come and fight for fundamental rights. So we hate injustice. And that is my pride. I'm a proud South Sudanese, and I will continue to be like that in moments of highs and in moments of lows. So this is how I will never ask for another nationality, but rather than being a South Sudanese. So I am proud to be a South Sudanese amidst all those odds that we are seeing in our lives. That's what makes us a particular people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you. Jerome, please, would you tell us why and what makes you proud as a South Sudanese?
What makes me proud as a South Sudanese? There's some few attributes actually that I could use to describe a South Sudanese, and I think my Brother Dominic had already mentioned a few, but the first thing is hospitable people. I've been to many countries. I've been to people from different backgrounds, but one thing that really stands out for a South Sudanese is being hospitable. We are a group of people that are very welcoming, despite the fact that we've been through decades of war. We are still welcoming people from different communities, people from different neighboring countries in our country. The second thing is honesty. Um, let's give a few maybe story. Um, I've worked in the Middle East and also in South Asia countries. And one thing that there's a day that I was going to the field in the refugee camp, and one of the generals, of course, an Arab, asked me where I am from, and I said I'm from South Sudan. And the first thing he told me is like, South Sudanese are the most honest people in the world. However, they also have a no-nonsense attitude, which to me is something to be very proud. We are people who do not tolerate nonsense. We could be very honest and very kind. And it's a very good reputation out there, people to acknowledge our honesty and also um, the fact that we don't take, sorry to use a cussing word, we don't take bull crap from people. We stand up, and maybe that is one of the reasons why we were able to fight for our independence, because we could not take being treated as a second class citizen in our own country. The other thing is, I always tell people, and I'm very proud whenever I'm asked, who do you think are the most beautiful people in the world, I say South Sudanese. Because when I'm in a foreign country, I walk on the street and I see a South Sudanese lady. Sometimes I just get start start sorry start struck. You're like, oh my god, that's a very beautiful lady, tall, beautiful, dark skin, very beautiful smile. And it's just something that to me it's to be proud of, something to tell people and to explain to people and to showcase how beautiful our ladies is. Also the men, of course, not only the ladies. The last thing is also, we have a very rich culture. You know, um, South Sudan is one of the culture. I mean, one of the countries that we still practice our cultures, and we are not ashamed, to showcase them. Uh, Compared to some of the countries that we've been to, or maybe because of the modernization, you'll find that there's so many communities that are already forgetting their culture. But South Sudanese, we are still sticking to our positive culture, and that is something that really makes me proud. Despite the fact that, of course, culture can be also a source of conflict, it nonetheless we still appreciate each other's culture. That is something that makes me very proud as a South Sudanese. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So many beautiful attributes or things about South Sudan that makes us so proud: the honesty, hospitality, resilience, the beauty of the people, the diversity of the cultures, rich cultures, and the people as well. So that's really a great starting point. And if we could actually talk a lot about what we are proud of, I think that would even get us more close together. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope we carry that on and find more other things to be proud of. So thank you so much. Our brothers just dropped out. I think the internet connection is really bad over there, so we can just move on. And I'll go back to you, Barbara, and ask you, what has been your encounter with being a South Sudanese in South Sudan and in the diaspora as well? What has been your experience? Thank you.
Again, I go back personally. My encounter in South Sudan as a South Sudanese has not been that negative. I don't know, maybe because I stand out as a South Sudanese. However, I see bad um, approaches to each other. So I would like to ask ourselves at the forum, can we agree that as South Sudanese people, we were united during the liberation than now as a country? we can't deny that there's tribalism, and that is the encounter that we are facing. There's lot of generalization, stereotypes, intercommunal violence between various communities, you know. So these are the encounters I see. There's that ingrained hatred for particular ethnic communities by members you see from another community. And you find examples are like if someone from another community does something, it's just generalized as that group doing the negative things. So if we really can take that negative attitudes towards each other as communities, I think these encounters will be less as for individuals. Outside in the country, in the diaspora, as I traveled, I'm seen just as a black person. I've not, like in my institutions where I was studying, this aspect of South Sudanese is not that negative to us. For me personally, I was respected as a South Sudanese, as said by the other members in the discussion, the honesty. I'm approached, I give the right answer, what I feel. So I don't flutter around to please someone else. So that honesty and that boldness in South Sudanese is what I give to where I go. And as I said, me personally, outside there, I'm respected as a South Sudanese. Though there's this negative thinking about South Sudanese, I still feel that I'm respected as South Sudanese. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Barbara. It's good to have John back, so I'll go on to him before he disappears again. Welcome, John. I'll just ask you the same question I asked the other panelists. What makes you proud as a South Sudanese, and what has been your encounter being a South Sudanese in South Sudan and in the diaspora? Thank you.
Thank you, Dora, for this opportunity. There are a couple of things that make me proud as a South Sudanese. Inside, when I'm in South Sudan, the things, I hope we can hear me. As you know, we have internet connectivity problems in our country, and I'm down here in Gure. So I'm not sure if the signal is strong, so it's disturbing a little bit. So as I said earlier, there are many things that make me as a proud South Sudanese. Internally, you know, the culture, our cultural diversity is something really that I admire so much, especially during occasions. When you go to an occasion, to an event, a cultural event, and you really see presentations like dancing from all the different tribes. It's so beautiful. So I admire it a lot and I love it. And also the foods that we eat, I like it so much. Uh, um, the only country that where I share the same common food is like, you know, our cultural food, which is pondu, locally known as pondu or gadia. This is how we call it in Yambio. So I love it, and the food actually. And then we have our common foods. It's South Sudanese, the kudra, the bamia, and the kisra. Love it. Outside South Sudan, what makes me proud is our unity. Although we are divided in the country, outside there, if there is any problem on any South Sudanese out there, and we remember, you know, we connect each other quickly and know each other that this is a South Sudanese. I've witnessed it before in Kampala. Somebody stepped on the feet of a South Sudanese, and then we were like 3 South Sudanese, and we all stood up against the person. And we were from different backgrounds, from different ethnic groups. And that was really, that unity, it was really something for me that I'll never forget. And then where I was working before, at the U.S. Embassy, there was an American who made a comment that this is my first time to see people in the world who are honest enough to each other and to people. So, we are open with our issues, and we don't hide our problems to people. So we are so much open. And then when you get positive feedback like that, like we're honest, it really makes me proud. And outside there, let me take it to the family level. Like in Kampala or East Africa or outside East Africa, you have seen our kids progressing very well at higher level performance at school. I really admire the level of intellectuality or intelligence that they have. Really, it makes me proud really to be a South Sudanese. And even in country, you can explain something to a South Sudanese just once. Unlike other tribes or other nationalities, you have to explain something like twice, 3 times, and then they can pick it. But for us South Sudanese, we pick things very fast, kind of things. And although some tribes are hostile to each other or to other tribes, but we are peaceful. Sometimes we are peaceful people and too generous that if you visit any South Sudanese home, the first thing we are very welcoming. I always get this feedback from people who come from outside. We are too generous. We welcome people with water, cup, mug of water, tea, those kind of things. So hospitality is really deep down into in our nerves, and people like it. People like it, like us for it. So I have a long list of things that make me proud. I don't want to take much time. I want to stop here to give chance for others to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for your insights, John. Macalina, do you want to jump in? Please.
Yes. Can you refresh the second question you asked?
Yeah, sure. What has been your encounter being a South Sudanese in the diaspora and when you visit home as well?
Let me start with the diaspora. For example, like now I'm in the US. Whenever I meet with someone, I always maintain a smile and says hi and like that. And the first thing people will always ask, like, oh, where are you from? And of course, I will say, I'm from South Sudan. Then the next thing you will hear, oh, how nice. Oh, and I'm sorry with what you guys are going through with like the civil wars and things like that. But that country is a good country. You people are very good. So I always get like really positive feedback and a lot of sympathy because of what we have gone through. This is in the West. And in the East Africa, of course, with my Konyo Konyo Swahili, when I'm like trying to talk to someone, for example, and they will definitely know that I'm not from Kenya or Uganda, maybe if I'm to engage in a conversation. Then, of course, what comes to mind is like, is there like opportunities in South Sudan? If I happen to go there, will I be able to get a job? Can you give me some dollars? So there is that negative connotation attached to maybe knowing that I'm from South Sudan. And people look at me in terms of dollars, in terms of someone who don't have a lot to offer. because maybe with the generalization of what they have gone through, when they encounter one person, then they think the whole South Sudanese are like that. I remember one time in Kenya, I was taking a matatu. So I was waiting. The conductor was like, Beba, 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 kuja, kuja. And then I just came and I looked through. There was no one in there. So I was waiting for other people to come and get in so we can start going. And the conductor was like, wait, come in, enter. And I was like hesitant. I didn't. He was mad. And then he said, oh, where Sudanese, after all, you don't have cars even in your country. You live in the jungle, you live in the trees, those kind of things that people make it like a joke, but to some extent, they are the understanding of like what they have in their minds. In South Sudan, in my motherland, I have a small example also to bring. One time, I was walking with my sister. We were at the airport going back home. Then some guys were looking and they were like, oh, Jizma deta mom. Them are Jizma, the original. So I was like looking at them and I was like, why am I being defined by what I wear? Why is that? And when we reach a certain point, someone was like, oh, kera no kamo kata wewe de, wala de lo kan fi kona tanana kan bi kabesa na ju kamo kato de. So I was like, oh my gosh, why are people focusing on what I have? So this brings me to the point of like we South Sudanese with our diverse culture, diverse background, diverse experiences, we tend to be confused. We mix the cultures that we bring with us from where we have spent our time in exile. Those who spend time in Khartoum come with that mentality of people from Khartoum, what you do. Those who spend time in Kenya, in Uganda, Tanzania, outside, when we go back to South Sudan, we bring those things unknowingly. And when we interact with people, we talk with people, it's very easy to identify that this person, okay, you are from South Sudan, but maybe you are not currently living in South Sudan. So we tend to focus on the small differences that we have instead of celebrating the differences and then creating something good out of those differences and focus on the best that each and every one of us has to offer. So that confusion is there. And I don't know whether it will go out or it will be there, but still we maintain those rich cultural background that we have. And that's the best of it, So I will stop here and give a chance to other panelists.
That's interesting. I wonder what Jocelyn has to say on that. In regards to, is Jocelyn here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. Do you have something to add to what Michelina has just said in regards to if you have a comment on her encounter being South Sudanese in the different countries just mentioned and your own experience, please shed a light on that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. My encounter in South Sudan, as my sister Barbara mentioned, it has not been really bad. It's been good. I'll give it maybe 80% positive remark. I think it's also based on the fact that I was born in Juba, and I spent my childhood in Juba, and we were the first lots of people that went back to South Sudan immediately after independence. I mean, after the CPA in 2005. So, of course, there was a bit of negative reactions when we first went back to South Sudan in 2005. There was this notion of Naswewede, these people from East Africa, the girls are not morally upright. They have, different way of interacting with people. We tend to, they look at maybe our dressing code And personally, I was attacked because of my dressing code when the first time I went to South Sudan. And it was not even in Juba, but just on my journey back to South Sudan at the border in Kaya, we were already being harassed. Oh, these kids who are raised in East Africa, they're mannerless. Look at the way they're dressing. Mind you, we are putting on t-shirts and jeans. So there was already a perception that these people coming from that side, they don't have manners. They're not brought up well. So that was the negative encounter that we had. And also going back home, you have, of course, family members from Khartoum, or maybe who are still who never left Juba, that are there. And because of the different culture, of course, we were subjected to such, to negative reaction in terms of, oh, well, nas where they cannot cook. Mama back the rakabu, they're just used to roiko. Iya haja best to roiko. Sunu kutu roiko, everything, and they even make a joke that even we are about to put roiko in our tea because we are so used to roiko. So that is one thing that, it did affect a number of maybe my siblings, but to me, who harsh remarks. The other thing is also immediately that we came, 2005, we had to go process our national identification card. And believe me, that was the worst experience ever that we had, because we're coming from East Africa. And at that particular time, most of the immigration offices were being manned by, it's either an Arab or it was someone from Khartoum that speak really classical Arabic. And for us, we know Arabic Juba. This is our Arabic that we are very proud of, and we're even, I think, campaigning for it to become the national language. So it was very hard for us to communicate. And of course, our nationality was put in question because most of them are like, these are not actually South Sudanese. These are maybe people from Uganda or people from Kenya, because we could not speak the classic Arabic, because we were always sent back and forth and ask questions in classical Arabic. They don't even mind bringing someone that could do a bit of translation. And the funny thing is, the person that was handling our case when it comes to processing our document was actually our distant auntie from my Didinga side. But because she grew up in Khartoum, she didn't know us, and she was
I think Jocelyn is having some internet problems. So, yeah, we can just move ahead. And yeah, she was just highlighting on her experiences of
talking,
being a South. Yeah, there she is.
and
Yeah. Okay, we've just lost her. So I think we'll move on to you, Dominique, and if you can just jump in and give your insights on how your encounter has been. Being a South Sudanese, you have lived, you are one of the people who have lived most of your life in Khartoum, and you have also lived in Juba, and now you're in the diaspora. So how has your experience been as South Sudanese?
Shukran. Thank you. Shukran. I know that is the problem of a diverse, the diverseness of South Sudan. Yeah, we are definitely part of the yesterday Sudan, even if we've been now South Sudan. There's this issue of national identity that has been a question, and so I can really understand, the fact that people wanted us, some of us, to talk in English, also talk in Arabic, and when you started talking in Arabic, you forget that you have to talk in an Arabic that is not the Arabic of Juba, and that is not even a classical Arabic, and the whole thing is actually very chaotic. But having said that, let me also give my experience. And like I said, so you guys wanted us to speak in Arabic also? That could be. ما في مشكلة، احنا بنلخبطها، هنا بنلخبط عربي وانجليزي عشان بعدك احنا نوصل المعلومة للناس.
Not the top
انا
Arabic.
طبعا اوكي ما في مشكلة. and I'll try to speak Arabic تجربة عشان جوسلين كلاسما. I'm joking. Anyway, لما انا كنت في جوبا، يعني زي ما اختي دورة قالت، احنا الناس اللي اتولدنا في جوبا، ترارانا في جوبا، قمنا في جوبا، نلعب مارا في جوبا، then we went to Khartoum. Now احنا مشينا قرينا في خرطوم. We studied in Khartoum. And when we went there, we went during the turmoils between the war. Only to come, I came in first in 2000. When I came in 2000, of course, this was during the time with Ajalaba. It was not easy to talk, and they can also identify. In a kita jit min bara, zay kalam al hasalat le ukhtiya Jocelyn di. But our people are so very concerned. The first time I asked Manas Alwana, ita kharajta, grade madrasa, قلت لها في مرة، قلت له يا أخي ما في مرة. قال ليه ما في مرة؟ قلت له ما لسه يا أخوتنا. قال لا خلاص كويس ما في مشكلة. And this is our people. They are into families. They wanted you to have a family. They will not want to see you. And our brothers who are in Juba, they will always wanted to call you. عشان تجي تقعد معهم عشان قال له تفطروا سوا. لما احنا جينا في 2005 after coming from Darfur, working in Darfur, I came to Khartoum and then I came to Juba. And I met some of our colleagues who've been at HPLA, and I like to, in this particular moment, نترحم على روح بتاعت الزملاء اللي ماتوا. أمثال ناس ونيوك كولان، أمثال ناس ريتشارد أوليكو. أنا لقيت الليلة إنه هم they are doing also a funeral rite for them. أمثال ناس ديفيد دي لوميلنش. ده يمكن لما نحن جينا, when we came back, we formed them, and so life was so very easy with us, and we were able to meet even some of these SPLA, and because they know ourselves and because they know our contributions, so the notions of itu jalabada bigat mafi, because these were some of the things that we were being confronted with. قال لي يا اخي جلابه. قلت له ما يعني جلابه معناه شنو يا اخي? But that was a political connotations of their time. And so what I saw in South Sudan was a sense that everybody wanted to make something for himself. Everyone wanted to better his life within a realms of, going together. This Harambe thing, we're moving together. I saw it, especially in colleagues. And that's what gives me a hope that tomorrow will always be better, because most of our age mates are now in the positions of leadership. It is just a matter of time that we can commandeer everything. And if you wanted to do it, we will do it. Because we go to every place. You will find a colleague and a friend. When my mother came from America, she said that, it's a mother line, not to give a line. قلت له لكن المسؤول ده مع زول زميل هو ذاته ما حيخليني انا اقعد في اللاين ده لو في بوليس، ده لو مثلا في وزارات التأمين ده لو بقى في سجون بتلقى الزملاء في قاعدين هناك ودايما بترحب بك انك انت تعال. Sometimes they will call, let us come and eat. And we eat, of course. There's one thing that we haven't eaten for the last 21 years was this good food. So we go and eat. They will always call us. When I came to the diaspora, because I was also a new entrant, I came here as a foreign student to study my master's, and then because of some of my problems, then I ended up here. But even here, when I was coming, I have to look for a colleague of mine. Then I call him, I'm coming. And he became to me a navigator that in not less than 1 month, I was able to know the city like I was been here for the last 20 years. And that one becomes like when we go to being places, even if they're outside here, they are still mindful. هم لسه همهم مع البلد مع الأهل البرة. هم دايرين أنه حاجات هنا ده لازم تكون في هناك. أقلها السلام. يعني this peace that is here must be there. Because when I came after 2013. Everybody was trying to know what is exactly that happened, because sometimes and when you hear things from the news, you are not so certain about some of the things that are happening. And everybody that is here wanted to retire home. They wanted to have something. They wanted to build a house. And that's why I say South Sudanese, they love this country. They love South Sudan so very much, even with the current situation. So I think my encounter has been is good. I'm not saying it is juicy. Of course, there's issues of tribalism, like we have to fight with these people. Ita jalaba, ita ma jalaba, ita nyagat, ita ma nyagat. We have to fight our ways. We used to quarrel even with ministers. Gali tu gila dapen gotolo ayana gila adab malu yani. Ma ifi ita lo ma gila adab hagag da bibidi minna. This is what they night alamna fi khartum anno hagag da ita ma takhalli. So even in this current situation, we still have a hope that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Ashan kida, the issues of them and you, like what you have put in your topic, need to be addressed honestly and holistically, so that ihna min asisa dawla. Iza ihna ma asasna dawla, hanakot fi dawama bita mashakil da zida. Shukran ukhti. Ana bagif hina.
Yeah, thank you so much. As you initially started saying that it is a complex topic, but then again, because we are so diverse as a people, and because we have also lived in the diverse countries that we have lived in, we have learned a lot of good values from either it's East Africa, you Khartoum, wherever, and we have blended it with what we have ours, and that's what makes us also so unique. And until we start like appreciating and looking at those values as so important for us, then we won't be able to really kind of build that national identity. So thank you for sharing. John, you wanted to add something on this, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Dora. I think I want to say the root causes of this problem is the conflict that has happened in our country, starting with our fight with our neighbors in Khartoum, the Arabs. The conflict dispersed us, and people ran crossed border. Some crossed border to the neighboring countries, particularly in East Africa. Some ran to Khartoum. Some did not run, actually. They were internally displaced. And I want to refer to the ones that were inside as the host community. And then I want to refer to those who cross the border as returnees or East Africans. That's how they frame mostly those who cross the border to East Africa. And then the diaspora aspect kind of community that we have. So as the conflict happened, we crossed the border and we were internally displaced. We were displaced actually in a very massive way. And then some of us who went to East Africa, we grew up there. We copied certain cultures. I don't want to say only positive ones. There are some who came with negative cultures as well. And then there are some of our community members, our society that went to Khartoum, and they copied some culture there. And I want to say those who came from Khartoum, they are, like Dominic said, they speak classic Arabic, and those who returned from East Africa, they speak fluent English. And unlike some of us who grew up within the country, but were displaced, and together with the with the liberation areas. So we turned to speak a bit of we call it Juba Arabic. And then this language thing has really twisted, affected our relationship with each other. So, you might find that our community members that ran to Khartoum, once when they came back, they tried to associate more to themselves. Uh, as you could see, even those who came from East Africa would prefer speaking uh, more English than classic Arabic because they don't know classic Arabic, but they would deep dive into the Juba Arabic, and then you see that the people are divided along the languages that they speak. And then again, you come to the way we dressing code, like Jocelyn mentioned. Dressing code was different. When I arrived in Juba in 2007, the top, the Arabia, those were the common dresses here. And people, from our community members who came from East Africa, gentlemen, and then tie in and those kind of dress. These were some of the cultures that came, to divide us. So it did not unite us really. And then my encounter in South Sudan has been, something about the people make wrong assumption about my identity. It's not only me alone. It's a Zande, but other tribes are also, people make wrong assumption about their identity, especially based on your skin tone. If you are a bit light skin, they want to call you Wewe. They used to say Wewe. Then if even now it is still there, they look at you as if somebody who is a foreigner, which most of our community members have encountered when they are crossing border, going to crossing border, going outside the country or coming back. You find a police officer and making wrong assumption and just asking you bring your passport. And you have a colleague, you have another person near you with dark skin, and they don't ask for passport, and then they come and ask you for passport. It's something really making people really see each other like those ones, classifying each other into different groups. So, which is for me is not good. And you have seen examples. I think the biggest problem contributing to this is hate speech. Hate speech. You might have heard in this country people calling other communities as MTN, Nyam Nyam, some cases Wewe, and those kind of rhetorics. These are hate speech, really. It's not good. This is something that has really contributed a lot to this othering problem. And it's not only the social aspect of it. Even when it comes to the government is not doing enough really to unite people, especially when it comes to promotions in the military. You find that it's not balanced properly. And then another aspect of it in the military is that we have many militia in the country, and they are tribal militias. And you find that one militia group from one community will go and attack another community, and do some destruction. And we have witnessed recently in Magui, where cattle keepers came and destroyed the farms. And when they tried to talk about it, they met guns, and they met guns, and it flared up a conflict there. So when you find that typically some groups of people like the pastoralists, if they are from one specific ethnic group and they try to come to another community, and then and when the conflict happens, and then people start now, the victim community will look at the other side as these are the people, these are our problem. These people are not good. They are not ours. And then people start to refer to each other as, in a different way, that this is a different community, this is a different person, and ABCD. So it's just a cultural. One is the culture, the language, and even the conflict has a lot of impact on us as a people of South Sudan. So really, and to get out of this, it requires a lot of efforts, especially human rights education is needed. People need to know what are their rights and what are the rights of others, and they need to respect the rights of others. And we also need some kind of like cultural uh, uh, dialogue, intercultural dialogue. People need to sit down really and discuss some of these issues. What are those issues that are dividing us as South Sudanese? And then that way we can get out of it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you for so elaborate explanation of the issue. And I think it's also when we can respect our diversity, the different languages, then we can find a way of kind of looking at each other, the differences that we have as a strength, and then finding that national identity that I'll ask you in the next question of how can we build that national identity despite our differences. So thank you so much. Barbara, do you want to add something on why we have so much dispute among us? Because some of us have grown in East Africa, some in Khartoum, some in the diaspora, but yet, as Dominica said, we really love our country and we want to contribute back. But then when we come out, because we have been so much influenced by the different cultures, we are now been influenced by the Norwegian culture that I've been living in all these years. And I maybe do some things really different, but I have that essence as a South Sudanese in me. But then I am, of course, influenced by the other cultures that I've met along the way. How can why do we have that so much dispute about each other? Would you say a little about that?
From my observation is that the dispute comes due to reasons. Many of us coming from different parts of the world are trying to adjust to our setting, our South Sudanese setting and lifestyles. So, and this has created a confusion which I describe as a culture shock. Each group thinks that the lifestyles and cultures that they are adopted from those countries are more acceptable and civilized than the other groups. And again, they forget that when we went to those countries and we adopted those lifestyles, coming back home, this does not reflect our cultures. Anyway, that's a different topic that needs another debate. However, coming back, we should focus on the positive lifestyles and embrace whether it comes from the diaspora, from East Africa or Khartoum or North Sudan. We have to take the good ones and put it into what we are able to use within our culture. Another thing is the other groups. There are groups who believe that they were the only ones who suffered more than the others. Like those in the East Africa believe that because they were in the camps, they suffered more than those who were in Khartoum. Forgetting that in Khartoum, those were in camps also. Most people were in camps. There were camps like the Joborona, Wadal Bashir. It was just exactly like and El Salam, like the ones in Kakuma and in Ajumani. So everyone suffered. Anyone who went out of the country suffered. And it's something common that because we fled the country, we were exposed, we suffered, we were vulnerable, and we were burdened to those nations. So that's one thing we should think, that I am from Khartoum. I'm not better than that one from East Africa. I suffered just like the other person who suffered in East Africa or in diaspora. The third thing is the language. Now, I'm comparing the two regions, the East Africans and the North Sudan. Those coming from East Africa getting to interact with those in Khartoum, we get this clash. Yani Talga, a group of Khartoumers speaking this classical, or those from Egypt speaking classical Arabic, forgetting that they have their brothers here who can understand Juba Arabic and they can interact with that language. They make it something special. Likewise, vice versa, I say. Those from East Africa think English is everything. Now, when they enter this group of the Khartoumers, or what, it's either English or Swahili. Now, these ones are cut off. Now, this is where the dispute comes. What I would say as a recommendation, once we try to build this national identity, we have to focus in identifying the languages. I know English is our national language. What other language? Is it Arabic, Juba Arabic? Or is it Swahili? Then we send people for courses, those who want to work and speak Swahili or Arabic, they go for those courses. I know I'm not comparing because I'm coming from Khartoum, but if you see in South Sudan, those coming from North Sudan are, are really willing to learn English compared to those coming from East Africa who are not really that willing to learn Arabic. So you see that thing brings that clash. So once the country decides which languages are to be spoken in the country, I think we can understand ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for important insight. Indeed, the language is a very big issue that we have to work on. So thank you. Michelina, you want to say something?
She stole most of what I wanted to say, but I will say the rest. The language definitely is the problem. Anna by Nyongor Arabi Juba Tanare. It's really good if this Arabi Juba can be made a national language. I believe the problems will be solved. Lanu nasa litrabbo fi Khartoum, they also know Arabi Juba. Lanu fi Khartoum, for example, when I was in Khartoum, we do speak this Arabic, classic Arabic, when we go to school. But at home, I'm not going to Arabi Juba. And then we speak our languages, like our traditional languages, So they still know this Arabi Juba. The same thing for East Africa. Nasa Litrabo for East Africa, they know Swahili, they know English, which is good. And they also know Arabi Juba because Fibet, they speak Arabi Juba, So why not find a common ground? For example, use this Arabi Juba to be one of the national languages. And of course, you can also write. You can write Arabi Juba by Arabic classic, or even in English. You can still write. So it's really a common ground for us in South Sudan. There's so much disputes because one thing that we as South Sudanese have is the mentality of entitlement. Those we all fought in different ways. We all lost family members. For Khartoum, for East Africa, or even abroad, other places, So the issue of the entitlement is the one really bringing the problems. Lanu, there are certain groups that feel like, oh, Anna chakalna, Anna yaindana hak, Anna yao supposed to lead. We are supposed to do A, B, C, D. You did not suffer enough. We suffered. But because that kind of struggle was different from the kind of struggle people in Khartoum went through, we lost great people in Khartoum. For example, one of them that I still grieve up to now is Okelo Kimo. He was killed because he was vocal. He did not carry a gun to go and fight in the streets of Khartoum, but he fought in a different way. He fought in a way that he speaks his mind. He writes, he make awareness what is going on. He talk about that, the injustices. And we have those who carried the Kalashnikov. They went and fought in a different way. And we have the women who also went on the front line. Kandefi Khartoum, well, Kandefi Gaba, or even inside South Sudan, whereby they support the people who are fighting. They cook, they provide food, akil, they take care of the kids, they preserve the culture, you know. So the one thing I see, we are failing because we block our minds to acknowledge the different fronts that we use to fight to liberate that country called South Sudan. We tend to carry the entitlement only to fit a certain group that fought in a certain way and disregard the other ones. That's where the dispute comes. And the part of the dispute also, the way we look. Oh, you look like Wewe. You look like Jalaba. So who do you want me to look like? I found myself, I was born like this. I was created like this in South Sudan. Why would you want to forge another look that should fit the way I look? Why not accept the way I found myself also in? You know, we don't choose which family we need to be born in. We found ourselves born in those families. And the way we look, also the same. So why are we really just like fitting one narrative? We need to liberate our minds. We still have a long way to go. We need to create that level ground whereby we accept who we are and move forward. We don't need to be identified like, oh, ita wewe, oh, ita look like this, you look like that, ita jalaba, even the way we speak. No. The fact that we have more than 60 tribes in South Sudan, we should have open mind to learn from each and every tribe the good they have and embrace that. You know, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That was powerful. Thank you. Jocelyn, do you have anything to add in regards to the dispute about us being so different?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think my fellow panelists have touched on so many of the points that I want to talk about. But I would just like to elaborate more on the issue of culture, perception, cultural perception. I know culture, you know, it shapes our perceptions, it shapes our attributions, our judgment, and also ideas of ourselves and others. Culture is something that is very powerful, and sometimes we end up doing it unconsciously. You know, we end up maybe saying things to other people because they're from a different culture, from from our thoughts and the words that we use. And it's also good to note that culture is not just about language. It's not just about the mode of dressing and and the food. There's more into culture. It also includes our attitude and how we deal with things, like what our perception about a certain situation. And I think I would like to talk about the elephant in the room when we talk about the issue of Khartoumers and East Africans. I think as much as we want to talk about being culturally fluent, you know, cultural fluency is, you know, you have to be aware of different cultures, and you have to, you know, be tolerant and accept people from different culture. But also we have to acknowledge the fact that there is also positive culture and there is negative culture. And that's the elephant in the room. We cannot talk about, let's accept the culture, you know, we are all from different, but are we ready to identify some negative cultures and also try to, you know, to identify and acknowledge that, of course, maybe people from different regions, they have this culture that it could be negative, you know? And so that's something that we shy away when we come to such forums, because we want to be politically correct. We don't want to maybe mention things that we think could be negative in certain way that could affect our nation building. Like in South Sudan, how do we work together as a group? I'll give an example from both sides, from East Africa and from Khartoum, the people we call Khartoumers, you know. You see, earlier on, sorry, my internet went off, but I wanted to talk about like the situation that we had at the what do you call the Department of Immigration. The fact that just a simple process that could take an hour takes 7 days or even a month, because there's a culture that is associated with people that come from Khartoum. Of course, it is what do you call, we are stereotyping, but also we have to acknowledge some of the things. You know, the thing of in government offices, there is this lack of what do you call, of work ethics, in the sense that people work every 5 minutes. They want to say another shy, I'm going for tour, or you know, just taking unnecessary breaks, and then you know, that's something that is associated with maybe, I don't know whether it's kind of like of an Arab culture or something like that, but I've also seen it also in Middle East, where people take so many breaks. People have certain attitude towards work culture, you know. So we in South Sudan at the beginning, I'm very uh, very positive about it, is that it's changing. But at the beginning, I swear to one God, it was almost 5 for tour. Shy yala fi for tour kansa ashara minnak, there is gada minnak, there's what, you know, there's breaks and breaks and breaks, and then we end up not even achieving what we're supposed to do in one day. Those are cultures that are negative, and in no sense someone will be asked to accept it as that is their culture. So let's let them be, let them have it the way they want to. No, we have to accept it, that is something that needs to change. Of course, it does. Culture is also elastic. It doesn't mean that just because we take people from Khartoum, like it's everyone who comes from Khartoum also take a lot of breaks, or they're always taking for tour and all that, Jibutamia, Jibushai, you know, all these things. Not everyone behaves that way. Those are the things that we need to mention. So the culture is an issue, but there is an opportunity also, you know, like there's something positive that can be worked through with this issue of culture. We have to acknowledge that culture is dynamic. You know, it's not static. It changes, and you'll see the people that are coming from East Africa, with time, some of the culture that maybe the other people think that are negative will be able to coexist, and will be able to adapt some of the positive from Khartoum, some of the positive from East Africa for us to coexist. You know, it's not something, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, it keeps on changing. You know, the other thing is also the fact that I mentioned that you know, culture, so one person can have so many cultures. You know, you don't have to have one culture. You know, I can have a culture as a South Sudanese, and then I can also have a culture as a South Sudanese in East Africa because I grew up in East Africa. Or Maclina can also have some cultures that she brings, like from, you know, where she is. So I want to believe that despite the fact that we come from different places, there is a common culture that us as South Sudanese that we share. Despite the fact that I came from maybe Kenya, or another person jam in Wawelwen, there is that common one. And I think it's good for us to emphasize on the common ones that we have, and try to look at how we will be able to adapt the other ones that we were not used to, you know. And then secondly, I think one of the reasons, apart from culture, that I think there is a lot of conflict between people from different area is also the issue that was mentioned about communication when it comes to language. I think it's not the language, but it is the value that we put in language. You know, people, we tend to look at English as if it's a measure of intelligence. You know, just because I'm from East Africa, I speak English, I want to think that I'm more intelligent than someone from Khartoum, which is really, really bullcrap. It's bullshit. It does not prove that I'm intelligent. You know, it's just a means of communicating with other people. So it is just the value that we put in culture that is becoming a problem. Of course, language leads to communication. And if we're not able to communicate well with someone because we have a different language barrier, we are not able to solve some issues, or it also brings some conflicts. And because of language also, there are so many employment opportunities that people from different areas were not able to get, because someone comes from Khartoum. I have so many family members and friends that are really intelligent, well educated, competent and all that, but because they studied in Arabic, they're not able to get opportunities in maybe NGOs with the UN and all that. You see, so such a person looks at it as in, it definitely affects them, because it's affecting their economic their rights. I'm not able to earn a living because I cannot speak English. So there's already a perception that I will have tools. They are getting jobs that I'm supposed to get, despite the fact that I'm very competent, but I cannot speak English. The same way with people from East Africa who cannot speak classical Arabic. Ali, when we went back to South Sudan, there were so many colleagues that came from different parts of the world, Europe and Canada and the US, Caribbean, whatever that you can say, who are competent, but they were not able to get jobs in the government offices. The government offices were flooded by people from Khartoum who could speak Arabic, classical Arabic. So that person already comes also with a different attitude towards those people who come through, because those are the people that are getting the jobs that they wanted in the government offices, And for me, coming from a legal background, believe me, most of the people that like English pattern really had challenges working in the law courts. Everything were in Arabic, papers were in Arabic, speaking, even just to add to present your case in court, you have to have a good command of the Arabic language, And then even when you see about appointment of these young lawyers, young judges, 99% were people who were Arabic pattern, like people who came from Khartoum. So those people were able to get, opportunities as magistrates, as judges and all that, while those who came from the other part of the world were not able because of the language barrier. That is also an issue. The third issue is past trauma, the past trauma. And I think it was Barbara or McLean who mentioned about, you think that you went through a lot in the refugee camp, but you don't know that also us, we went through a lot, because we've been in the refugee camp, definitely the harsh environment and all that. We go back, we're expecting everything to be given to us because we suffered. So we should be treated in a special way. While people in Khartoum, we think that those are the people, there's a perception, maybe they sided with the Arab people, they didn't want to run, there's nothing they did, maybe they had but people in Khartoum, we have relatives that have really suffered. People that will even go to, I have my Lotuko relatives that will go to the Bobrasaka to take, food, where they throw, this dead chicken and all that. So this past trauma, people still have it, and it will need a lot of, healing for people to accept, like, we all suffered equally. It's not only you people that have gone through certain situation. I think the last point that I want to say that could be also the issue is unfair treatment. And unfair treatment, we all mention about it, like you're treated differently because you came from a different part of the world. So in terms of employment, in terms of just getting your legal documentation, in terms of even in the market or even going anywhere, there's this difference in how people are treated based on where you come from your background. So those are the things that we really need to start looking at, like how do we become culturally fluent in order for us to accept each other, and also how do we become so genuine and honest to also address some of the negative things, culture, that we can talk to our counterparts or our friends. We are also Sudanese, but there are these things that you guys do that I think it's very negative. So we need to have an open discussion. We shouldn't take it as offensive, or when someone mentions something, you take it like, So I think those are the that I can think of, and most of my colleagues have already mentioned some of them. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for so an elaborate deep discussion about these topics that we really need to talk about it. The negative parts of the cultures that we bring in and the ones that we should embrace, because it's important in the next question of building the national identity, because we can't just embrace everything. That's not going to work out for us. So we have to choose what is good and then talk about the ones that are not working out. And as it's also important for our children coming up, what cultural identity are we teaching them? What are we picking from the good ones that we have in our cultures, and what negative ones that are we telling them not to take along with? So thank you so much. This moves us to the next question of what can we do to build a national identity? I think you have all said a little bit of it, but then if you can just go deep into this. So I'll start with you, Dominic. What can we do to build a national identity that we can all be proud of?
Yeah, thank you so very much. I was also enjoying, listening to those sisters, brilliant sisters of mine, and I'll touch base on some of the things that they have said here and there. But to answer your question, any nation is built, and it is built taking into consideration the sociocultural, and political diversities of that country. And if you any country that must actually surpass, conflict must look into these realities. And if you don't, then you are just building a nation that will definitely collapse. That is for sure. And a nation that is built at the exclusions of others is just a catastrophe. That is why today South Sudan is basically at war. Why? Because there's this entitlement syndrome that we fought this war better than others, and therefore we deserve. You may be recently looking at if you look at the behavior of the SPLMers, they've gave themselves the entitlement that they own South Sudan. They will come and talk about their vision, that they have a vision for this country, and that some people miss this vision, while others will come and say, well, your vision is dead, and it has been buried by the late Dr. Younger and together. It happens. Now, South Sudan is a multicultural, multilingual, multi-ethnical tribes. And we are kingdoms, and we are, chieftaincy. We are nations that came together in this construct by the desires of the colonial, and they did not take into consideration. Ochtida, she's coming from a kingdom. The Maya and the Hujang, these are kingdoms. The Azande, the Anuak, the Shuluk kingdom, and the chieftaincy, the likes of Pitia Lugar. These dominations or dominions have been existing in South Sudan for such a long time. So any nation that you have to build in South Sudan must take into consideration this construct. Otherwise, we are failing. And it doesn't need a rocket scientist. And because, like we say, South Sudanese are resilient people who love their culture, because South Sudanese are full of pride and they are very proud, you will never, ever, they will definitely react. They will react. And so when we wanted to look at the modern nations and how modern nations have been constructed, taking into consideration both our culture, our setup, Bitana as Junubinda, we need to take it a very serious note. So when we are looking at a modern state, then what is it that makes a nation viable? Now we need to have a constitution. This is something that this current government under Kir They failed to do that. They crafted a constitution that will give them that entitlement and a sense of belonging, that they wanted to be there. Never did they know that you are dealing with your people. Recently, even their party is getting money from the coffers. That is supposed to be the government thing. It's supposed not to be like that. So we need to dissociate things, because Junubin, we have a struggle for this country for such a long time, and all of us have an anchor in this struggle. And because we failed to build a nation by having a permanent constitution that will take into consideration our socio-cultural and political realities. We divided this country into tribes, between my tribes and your tribes, and you look at the construct. If you look at the army at a certain point in time is commandeered by a particular tribe men as opposed to other, and therefore this demography to change, there must be a war, and the rest is all what you guys know as a history of our country. So there is a sense in which we now have to go back to the basics. Anna, when we were in Khartoum, and here the issues of Khartoum has came in 1989, when Omar Bashir and his junta colleagues got into the government. They did something called a national strategic conference for the issues of peace and war. المؤتمر استراتيجية قومي القومية اللي حول غداء السلام. يعني الentry point المحور بتاعه أنك أنت you wanted to bring peace, but for you to bring peace is a process that will have to take into consideration a number of steps before you can reach a formidable peace, and after that you have to implement that peace. So they went for a strategic conference, and if you look at our South Sudanese, it is this I know principles that really killed us. When the advance team came to Khartoum, it's okay, I'll take note of it. When the advance team came to Khartoum of the SPLM, when we were talking with them, they know everything. And that was the beginning of their failures. And they failed to establish and to build for us a nation. A modern nation that we are supposed to. And when you are building a nation, you don't have to put yourself. The construct must be in such a way that it must self-regulate itself. Yeah. And I could see the blue book, beta SPLM, it has already divided the people based on where you are during the liberation struggle. If you are a general, the grade 1 and the grade 2 is a position that you will occupy. And if you are within, you are not an army, but you are helping these people, giving them money, trying to give them a protections around there, working with them, then you can get 3. Amma nas al jain min Khartoum, then they will give you anything based on your qualifications, and So there is a need for us as a country, knowingly. I mean, our reality is really true. That Junubin, and I will conclude with this, that Junubin has gone into, pretty much everywhere. Even in the Bahamas, you will get Junubin there. And definitely we will be coming with experience. So a nation must define what he wants. A nation must prepare to embrace its citizen, especially those people who have the know-how in order to contribute to the nation building. And if we can be able to embrace, then we can be able to actually give our sons and daughters that are outside there to come so that they can be able to participate. And we will give them their dues. So there is a need in building a nation. We need to realize and recognize that we have people, and because of our nature of struggle, they are no longer in South Sudan. But the fact that they are South Sudanese, the construct must be in such a way that it gives them the basis, and then you have to regulate it. Otherwise, you will just be revolving around the same cycle and talking about the most unsubstantial issues that we see that is here. Even in the constitution of South Sudan, by the way, English and Arabic is actually the lingua franca of the day. But are they working with it? I'll stop here.
Well, thank you, Dominic, for making us aware about the importance of having that foundation while thinking about building that national identity. So thank you for that. Barbara, we are running out of time, so if you can jump in and tell us your insight on how we can build a national identity. And yeah, thank you. You are muted, please.
I'm trying to define what is national identity. Of course, a country to have a national identity embraces all the cultures, the languages, and the history of the country. Now, for us to build a national identity, the country has to evolve on how we as South Sudanese look at ourselves. And we have to look at ourselves as one rather than on tribal basis or different languages or cultures. Now, saying that, that said, I want to give some questions. How much has the government of South Sudan done to remodel South Sudan into a cohesive nation? Two, what has the government done to evolve share commonalities across the diverse ethnic and cultural groups that they found themselves in this geographical entity or political entity as South Sudan? Three, what has the government of South Sudan done to avoid this racial dominance, discrimination, and biasness among its people? You see, if we can answer those questions, we'll be able the government has to take lead in making institution policies that will promote this unity among the people. Okay? And this process goes with democracy, transparency, and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those were great recommendations and questions that need to be answered. And I think also on the individual level, Michelina and Itoro, so if you can also tell us what we as individuals with our government, what can we do to build that national identity, which is so important because it's a collective responsibility for all of us. So yeah, Michelina, you can jump in and then Jocelyn. Thank you.
I think I just wanted to mention also a couple points like for us, in order for us to all to contribute into having a one common national identity, or maybe a couple accepted national identity, we need to put down in a constitution, like my brother Dominic mentioned, exactly what needs to be out there. First, we need to start with a series of like bringing down the elders that are still ruling and have the entitlement and everything, bring them down, bring the women, bring the youth, have a freedom of speech. We can voice out, bring our like kingdoms, tribal kingdoms, to bring in the ideas they have for discussions. People have to discuss and come out like with a one agreed way forward on how we can now forge that identity that we all want. We don't want to forge an identity whereby we exclude others. There is no way that this country will go ahead with cutting out some other parts of the country or cutting out some communities, saying that you are not A, you are not B, you need to be a C in order for you to fit. We cannot go ahead. This country will continue be in problems and will continue fighting all the time. Salam Mabija. Salam Bija, Yom Alana accept, anna kullana South Sudanese, وكل ideas في قبائل وفي kingdoms كده كتو in one line, and then we accept it and drop out the idea of the entitlement. That's when we'll see a real sense of pride in national identity of South Sudan, and accept that we all fought in different ways, and we can bring all these different ways together and then move forward. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Magdalena. Yeah, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much. I think my recommendations are just going to be not a high-level recommendations, but just a recommendation that at individual levels, at a family level, at a community level. I think the first thing will be, as I mentioned earlier on, is cultural fluency. We have to be able to understand and also be able to appreciate each other and different cultures, and look at people's appreciate people's different background without judgments and stereotyping. That's one recommendation that we can do as individuals, as communities, as society. The other recommendation, I think, also will be the equal opportunities given to every citizen in South Sudan. I think that is one of the major causes of conflicts, not only between the Khartoumas, East African, and whoever they are, but also within our different communities, different ethnic groups. We have this notion in South Sudan where some communities think they fought the war, or sometimes that you need to have a certain tribal mark for you to be identified as a South Sudanese. So we really need to treat each other equally, and it goes back to the leadership and to the law enforcement. How do we not, subject people to unfair treatment just because someone is not dark enough, or someone is not short enough, or someone is not fat enough. So equal treatment is one thing that I think the government really needs to work and put things in place on how we can ensure that every person is equal before the law, and so forth. The other thing is also, it goes back still to equal treatment when it comes to economic opportunities, employment opportunities in the country. We don't need to segregate each other because of our backgrounds. We need to make sure that everyone is given equal treatment. And of course, whenever you tamper with my income, definitely I will do anything to cause a havoc. There's this sense of self-preservation. So if you're messing around with my livelihood, or you're messing around with ways that I'll be able to bring up my kids, definitely I'll have there's going to be conflict in the country. So we have to make sure that employment opportunities are there, they are created, and also they're being it's being treated fairly. It's being given to people regardless of their religion, ethnicity, their tribe, and all that. This one is a bit harsh, but I think it's the only way that we can also be able to avoid such hate speech, in the country. Maybe come up with punitive measures in South Sudan, and it's something that has really worked in the neighboring country, especially in Kenya. They have a commission that is always out there to be able to identify certain hate speeches that are it could be in social media, it could be in any other form, and people are actually going to jail for that. I mean, it doesn't mean that we cannot joke about Khartoumers and say things, of course, things that should not be so offensive, things that are just there for fun. But then when we go way a step higher, and putting other people in danger because of where they come from, then I think there should be some measures that are put in place in order to identify such hate speeches. The other thing also is proper policies in place, especially in law enforcement agencies, especially when dealing with issues with legal documentation. How do we identify ourselves as South Sudanese? What are the proper procedure that needs to be followed? I don't need to go through some crazy processes just because I'm from a different place. There should be a standard process for every other person. So the law enforcement agencies also need to be trained in the sense that they'll be able to know how to go about issues with regards to our sense of identity. How do you identify someone is South Sudanese or not? Last and not least, I think also we could bag on maybe the civil society organization. They also have a role in making sure that we are able to appreciate our identity. We are able to work together and come up with programs, activities that will engage all South Sudanese, regardless of their background, in order for them to appreciate each other and live in a cohesive environment. Of course, when it comes to conflict, and we don't have to look at conflict as something that is active conflict, we also have what we talk about issues. About when we talk about peace, there's something called negative peace as well. We think just because we are not fighting, everything is okay. But there are things that are being done, structural, conflict that are there. Just the way the attitude towards each other, that is already conflict. You don't have to be slapped. You don't have to your eyes to be, removed, or your hands to be chopped for you to say that there is conflict. So this already to me is a conflict, and we need to. The other way of addressing it is for us to be able to compromise, be able to work to cooperate with each other, and also using avoidance. You can avoid certain issues. We don't have to always be on each other's neck. We also have sometimes to tolerate and avoid a conflict. If someone maybe uses certain way or addresses you in a certain way that you think is offensive just because you are supposed to speak up and stand for your right, but also sometimes in order to avoid conflict, we also avoid it. Last and not least, to accommodate. Let's just accommodate each other, and let's love each other. And the one thing that I want to say is I know I'm one person that have been identified as a as a Khartouma hater, but which is not true. Most of the time we use it just as a sense of humor on social media, or say such things, just to just identify some of the things that we think are a bit funny when we look at our sisters or our brothers from the north. And I'm very sure there are also some of the things that they look at us from East Africa. They're like, oh, these ones, they're drunkards. The girls just drink and they go to the club all the time. Or, the girls dress indecently. They like being naked and all that. So we use it as a humor. But it does not mean that is really that we hate our brothers from the north, or we hate our sisters from East Africa. It's something that people just use to have fun. And I know sometimes it goes beyond and it will affect other people, but we should be able to say sorry if we offend someone. We should be able to apologize, and also for other people also to be able to accept some of this humor. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Those were really great recommendations. And I think also it's very important, as a lawyer, mentioning about the law enforcement, because it's important to have it in place when we kind of go up beyond the limit of, hate and all these things. So thank you so much. I think we've come to the end of our discussion. This is an ending discussion. There are a lot of things that might not have been touched, but then we'll take it later in another discussion. And we see that one of our panelists hasn't been here, and then there are many others who will definitely have some questions about it. So thank you so much for all the insights and perspectives that you have brought in here. And I think we should take it on and discuss with our family, our friends, and everyone out there. And the good thing, that the feeling that I'm getting out of here is the pride as a South Sudanese, and the things that make us proud of South Sudanese. And though living in Norway, I remember when I meet the old Norwegian women, they'll tell me, oh, who are you from South Sudan? Oh, you must be, it's really good for you to be here because South Sudan is very poor and all these things. I've been met like that in the first meeting. But then afterwards, then they know the beautiful people of South Sudan. And again, great people like Pari the Taban, that most Norwegians love and know a lot about him, being picked up as a very good South Sudanese that make us also proud. So thank you so much. And I'm also very proud of you being South Sudanese and in all the work that you're doing. in your professions and wherever you are. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. Before we conclude, I just want us to take a 1 minute kind of silence. And this is especially for the 6-year-old girl who was raped in a wheel and died. That's very horrific. And this is unfortunately, there are many girls out there who are experiencing violence, sexual violence. And as a nation, this is also something that we are working on. So let's just take a 1 minute silence before we close up in memory of this young girl, and we pray that her soul rests in peace and the perpetrators will face justice. Thank you so much for tuning in, all the audience. We thank the UN Women in Juba for assisting our sister Barbara with the technical assistance there. So thank you so much. And thank you, Aisha, for supporting us at the backstage. Wishing you all a very blessed weekend and see you all again. Thank you. Bye.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.